He has a couple of special guests on today, one of them being me, Vicki, from Vicki's Parlor, and the other is Dennis Holman, who is a Community Solutions member and a regular on this program. I'd also like to introduce Andrew Richter.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Could be better.
Great.
Well, except
There's a lot of
the
activity
legislature
going
and the
on.
governor could give me a bad day anytime, I think.
Yeah, we've got quite a stack of stuff here today.
That's right.
And just reading through it makes me so, I'm glad you want to talk about these things today. It'll help a lot.
Oh.
Anger management, we call it.
Get it? Well, you can get it all out of your system
Yeah.
here today. Well, a lot of activity going on here at the legislature. The big thing is not a lot of big things have become law yet, but there's a lot of things floating around, and we want to take the time here to give you some information on what is in the works. You've probably heard some things, and maybe you haven't heard of others. The big thing that's gone on so far is the establishment of what's called the Healthcare Exchange, or as they call it, the Minnesota Insurance Marketplace Establishment. Now that's fancy government talk that means nothing, but basically it's how Obamacare is applied at the state level. Every state that is participating creates an exchange where private companies have to be a part of in order to be eligible for the government money. I mean, there's a lot of details.
So they're being held hostage.
Well, sort of. And that did pass on a pretty much a purely partisan basis.
That's easier for you to say.
Yeah, well, sort of. So we have a healthcare exchange as of March 20th. The governor signed the bill March 20th, and we now have an exchange. Actually, a minority of states have done this, actually.
Right, a minority of states. And in Minnesota, I believe there were no Republicans that voted for that exchange.
I don't think so.
And there was no one present from the minority party at the signing of this.
Yeah, so it's just like the bill at the federal level. It's all a one-sided ramrod to do this. And I would say one of the things that I think that is prevalent is the exchange is a step, another incremental step towards single-payer health care. I mean, that's the ultimate goal here, is to get one provider, have one size fits all, and including here in Minnesota. In fact, there is no provision in the bill that requires more than one provider. That does not exist. In fact, Senator Dave Thompson from the Burnsville, Lakeville area.
Yeah, it's Farmington area, actually.
Yeah, it's,
yeah.
and I don't remember what number that is anymore after the redistricting, but it is the old 36. I know it's not 36 anymore. He tried to amend the bill to say that you have to have more than one provider, and that amendment got defeated. So what does that tell you about what the intent is here?
Right, what the intent is.
Anybody want to take bets on what that one provider will be?
Well,
who that one provider
we've
will
had
be?
limits in Minnesota for a long, long time. It was the law in Minnesota since the 70s that only nonprofits can provide health. That's why we have, what, Health Partners, Medica, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and pretty much have nothing else.
I'll give you a hint. This company took over Medica,
Who's that?
United Health Group.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
they're still.
They're taking over everybody except
Yeah.
for Blue Cross so far.
But we've had a very limited healthcare choice for a long, long time, and there's one or two other small ones, I think. But they've been limiting healthcare choices for 40 years here, and we're just continuing down that path.
Yeah,
Care, I think they call it.
Yeah, and on top of that, only companies that are allowed to operate in Minnesota are the ones that you can buy health care from. It's not like automobile insurance where you can go to a variety of
across the borders
across
to
the
choose,
border, yeah.
because that shuts down the competition.
Yeah, and think about it. Is your car insurance going up 10, 15% a year if you have a clean driving record?
No.
No, but your health insurance costs continue to, because with no competition, there's no supply and demand market forces holding back the cost like there is in other industries.
Exactly.
Well, also, and I believe that we're being forced to pay for those with no insurance who, you know, pop into the hospital.
You just wait until your taxes in 2 years. If you don't have insurance, the penalty that you pay, it's going up 8 times in 2015, according to the. Now, my guess is that Congress will step in and defer, like they do with the AMT. You know, they just indefinitely keep pushing it off. But at some point, this Obamacare will not be funded unless that penalty goes through. There's, I think the penalty goes into the thousands real quick for people with no insurance, so who don't become part of a.
How could you possibly know that? Even the people who signed Obamacare into existence don't know what's in it.
Oh, they haven't read it by now?
No, that's what we're learning.
No,
they still haven't read it. They still don't know what's in it.
They're still cranking out regulations and rules and you know,
And the
administrative
waivers
stuff.
are the big issue.
Retrofitting garbage.
The waivers are the big issue because any large union, I'll call them friends of the president, have been wavered through 2014. And they've done it with they've done it with education, with No Child Left Behind. Minnesota got a waiver last year. Just a mess. And this is, again, you've got every layer of government in there trying to tell each other what to do. And I'll tell you what, if that's House File 5, Senate File 1, if you want to look that up. And there is a long kind of meandering description of it, and there is the shortened version, which is what I'm looking at. But
and even the shortened version is gobbledygook.
Yeah,
It's
and there's
too many words. It's not the truth. Concise truth.
About 30 co-sponsors, and if that didn't put you in a bad enough mood, how about looking at some nice, beautiful tax increases coming our way?
Oh my!
You think the governor's proposal was bad? I'll tell you, the legislature, I think they're trying to out-tax each other to see who can come up with the worst idea. But the governor, if you missed it, we did a show about a month ago about laying out the governor's original forecast, original budget, which was based on something called the November forecast. And then that gets revised in February. There's a February forecast where a lot of the details that were not known are filled in. But we are looking at an income tax increase with an extra bracket and a second extra bracket to pay back the school shift.
Right.
That's the House bill.
Yeah.
We're looking at a Senate bill that has a $2 billion tax increase with absolutely no details whatsoever. We must have Harry Reid running the Minnesota Senate because there's no budget, no nothing. There's additional sales taxes dedicated to transit and things like that being proposed, even though we've heard the endless streams of lowering the sales tax, but yet at the same time we're applying a higher one. And those are all over the place.
Hey, do you know what I heard somebody say today? An actual former political operative, as it were. He's still in the game, but should I say his name? Do you know what I heard him say today? Taxes are at the lowest in Minnesota that they've ever been. Is that true? Do you feel it? Do you feel that? Because my taxes keep going up and up and up and up, no matter which way my turn.
Was this guy getting electric shocked when he was saying that?
I don't know why he was saying it. He has an agenda.
Well, and there's a couple different bills. There's an omnibus transportation bill that is right now at a staggering $3 billion. That's billion with a B. And that's to fund just a whole laundry list of things.
And they call it ambitious.
Well,
Ambitious.
It's smart growth, I guess,
Is the word.
what.
Yeah, and the backdrop to this is that as of the latest budget forecast, there was only a $600 million shortfall in the budget that needs to be covered. But that's not stopping the legislature from proposing billions of dollars of tax increases.
And we should explain, too, this proposed, this budget is to cover the automatic increases in spending with the revenue that we have. So nothing is being cut. Nothing really has been cut. These projected deficits are, if all of the automatic spending increases go through, we have a I think it's $627 million deficit.
Right.
So if we just don't let even if all the automatic spending increases go through, 627 is right now what we're short.
Right.
So
and with each forecast that comes out, and they come out quarterly, that deficit or that potential deficit gets reduced.
Yes.
It has been doing that ever since the Republicans were in control of the legislature and made sufficient changes to not only take care of a $5+ billion shortfall that was that was staring them in the face in 2010, but so the shortfall is a fraction, of what it was 2 years ago, and according to the minority voices in the Senate now, if nothing were done to raise tax increases, we're on a track with a shrinking shortfall to have no problem at all.
Yeah,
with no tax increases.
And I would add that the budget does not go into effect till July 1st. But we still have months before any of these, because that's when the new biennium starts.
Right.
So we still have months before any of this even takes effect, the new budget that we're talking about now, and that would go through June 30th of 2015.
Yep.
Okay, that's really interesting what you're saying, is that when the Republicans were in office, because the person who's proposing this now is a former Republican who changed horses and got on this team, and he's the cheerleader of this operation of trying to propose the $3 billion
that's a pro-transportation Republican, right?
And he calls it, yeah, exactly.
Like
he
Peter Bell
switched
and the Met
horses. It's
Council?
like, well,
Yeah.
I call it infiltrating the Republican Party at that time, but that was back in 2008, and now he's switched horses, and he calls this new legislation, he says it has a lot of moving parts. And I call that, I'm your translator today, okay? So I'm translating the gobbledygook into language that we would speak. And I call it, we have to read it to see what's in it.
Well, and I would take it a step further. One of the things that they're also proposing is this additional sales tax dedicated to
what's in it.
transit. And there's another bill, House File 1044, that specifies where that extra money would go. And it's largely to the Met Council, the County Transit Improvement Board, which is where we hide all the debts that the light rail keeps piling up because they continue to operate at a deficit. 7% to provide sidewalks, bike routes, shuttles, 7% going to the cities, and 3% going for, again, regional bike trails and all the stuff that the Park District is already doing. And already they're bonding to do some of that stuff, which is, again, deficit spending. So it's just a wide variety. And places like the Met Council and County Transit Improvement Board are places where you and I are not represented.
Exactly.
It goes to a group of bureaucrats.
Mm-hmm. And what I want to say is that they approved it with a county board vote. And I said, well, what happened to our right to vote on it? And then they say that the bill allows counties in greater Minnesota to levy the existing local optional sales tax for transportation by county board resolution alone. No
Yes.
referendum needed.
Yes, because in greater Minnesota, they're not underneath the Met Council or the County Transit Improvement Board's umbrella. So what they want is they want the authority out there. The unelected people want the authority that they don't have out there now that is in the Metro right now.
But I thought we the people got to vote on sales taxes.
Oh, we the people
But
don't get to vote on
I mean,
that
we're
stuff.
supposed to get to,
What's
but
the matter
they've
with you?
taken that right away from us, and that's why I consistently say that we're living under Bolshevik rule, as I see it. You know, they took it away with the stadiums. We didn't get to vote on that, and now they're
that was a
taking
special bill.
and taking $300 billion. Is it $3 billion in transportation funding without our approval?
Well, and I would say, too, that Minnesota's shadow government is all over this. the League of Minnesota Cities, which you fund with your tax dollars. Association of Metropolitan Municipalities is behind this. There's 87 counties in Minnesota. They have their own group. They are all backing. There's a group of mayors, not just the metro mayors, but who are getting together and using their power to lobby at the legislature. So these people who we are funding are acting in our name. I mean, pretty much every city in Minnesota is part of the League of Minnesota Cities. They have an agenda to go forward with this stuff. And I don't know who sets their agenda. I don't know.
They don't want you to know who sets the agenda.
They have no budget. You go to their website, there's no record of where your tax dollars are going. So that's another thing, too, is these unelected, you could call them NGOs if you want.
Governmental.
Yeah, even though they are governmental, but they're special interest groups. And they're all pushing. So this is going to be something that everybody in Minnesota is going to have to deal with regardless of where they live. But I would say in the metro area in particular, with the extra taxes, and I would say this too, the extra taxes are all regressive. These excess taxes are going to hurt the lower and middle income people the most. They will have their buying power reduced. And when you add all these other taxes being proposed, we're proposing extra income taxes, broadening the sales tax base, which is going to tax my Viagra and my hemorrhoid cream and all that stuff, and my jock itch and everything else. And think of everything you buy is going to be, you're going to have they say 5.5%, but if you add all these 1/4 and 3/4 cent taxes, we're going to at some point be right back where we started.
And to touch on the regressive tax, especially to the poor, brings us to license tabs fees would increase, and the flat tab fee paid on older vehicles would increase by $10 under the bill. Now that's my dog in the fight. I have 3 old vehicles, and I mean really old. So that hits me right there, but again, it goes to trying to get us out of our vehicles. And it also affects parts. They're raising the price of automotive parts and services, again attacking drivers instead of how about bicycle riders? Why not? If they want their bike pass, then they should have increases on the bicycle license
tires?
that they have to buy. Well, last time I checked, you're supposed to have your bicycle licensed.
Yes,
And
you
so
can't
why
ride a
not
bike without government's permission.
add the remainder split between the Metro and the Greater Minnesota Transit. Again, raise the tax of the bus passes, get out of my pocket. And to be extremely cruel, it says that it will benefit bicyclists, walkers, and people in wheelchairs. And so I contend that you'll have to raise the taxes on the walkers and the people in the wheelchairs along with it. Why should I foot the bill for everything?
You mean you don't care about people in wheelchairs?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way, but I think they should pay their fair share. Remember, we like that word fair share when it comes to everybody else?
Another problem, and this is kind of an aside, but you remember the legislature in setting up a stadium and figuring out how the state's portion of that would be paid. They decided that electronic pull tabs would be the way to go. Well, that's been a dismal failure.
Yeah.
And so now what they're proposing is electronic bingo. And that is actually moved ahead. Electronic bingo. So while they're talking about tax the rich, how many rich people do you know that play bingo?
That's
how many
a really
rich
good
people
point.
do you know that play pull tabs?
Nobody.
On top of that, cigarette tax. They want to do what, 74 cents or
Something
whatever,
like
at
that.
least that.
Well, you know what the
And-
problem is there? Problem is there, so many people aren't smoking anymore that they're not getting the money.
Right,
So
right.
that's right.
And
So all this talk about taxing the rich, they find more ways to take money from the people who can least afford it than they do worrying about taxing the rich.
Well, remember, the wealthy can avoid taxes if they want to.
Exactly.
Right,
The
shelters.
Poor people can't. I mean,
Right.
poor people can't drive to South Dakota every day to do something, and rich people can. They can relocate. They can change assets. Companies can change their locations, and I mean, there's ways to get around taxes if you have the money and the accountants. But the average person who needs to buy, clothes, which they're proposing
What's
to tax.
taxing clothing? That's crazy. It's a necessity, and so is food.
And there's other things too.
Well, like beer, wine,
Well,
anything
some people
alcohol.
consider beer a necessity.
anything
that's true.
alcohol, the taxes are due to go up if the DFL has their way by hundreds of percent.
And that's part of the social engineering movement, because it's a sin tax, because they're trying to make us live these perfect lives that they want us to live. So in a nutshell, we started out at talking about the gas tax. They want to raise it by 28.5 to eventually 40 cents over 20 years. They say increasing it, the state gas tax, to 40 cents over 20 years. I suggest we phase them out over the next 20 days.
Right.
Are you with me? Call your legislatures and tell them not to do this.
And I should say that 28.5 cents per gallon is already in the upper half nationwide.
Yes,
we
it is.
already are high, and the sales tax and the income tax. We are already very high, and all of those things, if we do nothing, we're
Right.
still very high. And here's the thing. If what the DFL says is true, then Texas and Florida should have huge budget deficits because they don't have state income. You heard the three-legged stool. They don't have income taxes. New Hampshire doesn't have a sales tax or an income tax, and yet they're not running huge deficits every year. Yet the highest tax states, Minnesota, California, we all know who New York, New Jersey, they're constantly running into huge deficits, and they have the highest taxes around. So by the logic of the big government people, the states with no income tax should be drowning in debt every year, but that's not what we see.
No.
We don't see that at all.
And people are moving out of the high tax states to states like Texas, and that is creating more jobs. And
Yeah, the
I
club
personally had 3 friends move to Texas in the past. Well, one of them just moved 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And in the past year, 2 other friends have moved, and they're moving to North Dakota and South Dakota.
Yeah, there's a special interest group called the Club for Growth.
Yep.
Stephen Moore is the head of that, and they did a study that shows that 1,100 people a day are moving from the 9 highest tax states to the 9 least tax states. So 1,100 a day. So, and look, Minnesota's population's been stagnant, really. It's gone up a little bit, but very little
Well, I
compared
feel
to
it's
the rest
gone
of
up
the
a lot
country.
because, sorry to shift gears here, but I feel like it's gone up a lot because of the welfare. People come here for the welfare, and
Right.
that's not the right
But-
reason
but
that we
that's-
want people coming
But that's
here.
not resulting in an increase. What's happening is the productive people are
Right, are
leaving.
moving.
So it's not really creating much of an increase. And I would say too, we don't have much time left. There's another critical thing that's going on is the forced unionization of child care providers.
oh my. Yeah.
That's House File 950. The sister bill in the Senate is 778. And that is basically a bill that would require child care providers to be unionized.
And I don't know why. I mean, how does that? What they're doing is they're saying that if
I
you're,
know why.
I mean, but they're saying that if you're a child care provider who receives a government subsidy, you have to do this.
Yes.
And so don't receive the subsidy. What do you need the subsidy for? Aren't the parents of these kids paying you? The answer is no, because they're on welfare.
Or there's a
and so
daycare
there's-
credits too that are built in. Working family credits and things like that, I believe, are all part of the state's income tax infrastructure.
So find a way to just take care of the kids and unravel yourself from the government programs, and you won't be forced into doing it.
And it
Yet.
will raise the
Yet.
cost of daycare because they're going to have to cover
Their
the
union
increased
dues.
cost.
Right.
So,
gonna have union
and who
dues.
does that hurt? It hurts the single parent homes. It hurts, the poorer people who maybe both parents have to work. they're the people that will be hit harder by this. But so
And
that's
what about the people who have their kids in daycare because they don't want them in the government little reform schools that they call early childhood education?
Right.
So they want them in private homes, whether they, there's different options that are offered, religious homes, and so on and so forth.
you don't get choices. What are you talking about?
Right,
You don't
that's
get
what I'm
choices.
saying. Is
Your
they're just trying to
choices are
squash the
government or government.
choices. They're
Now,
trying
do you want
squash-
vanilla here or vanilla there? That's
Yeah.
your choice.
So they're just going to force more daycares to go out of business. So if you have your child in a home daycare instead of a government reform school, this affects you, and so you want to call your legislature. You don't have to go down there, but call.
Yeah, and I would say that I would end with a couple other things here just to watch for. And some of these things really have not gotten off the ground, and they may not this session, but one thing is minimum wage is another big topic because anything raising the minimum wage, again, will affect all of us because that will result in price increases. Unemployment among teenagers is already extremely high, especially among minorities. It's very bad.
Right.
The governor has also proposed another bonding bill, $750 million worth of deficit spending. I mean, we have these projects and we don't have the money for them. But
Right.
those are two big things also to watch, as well as education. They want to make early childhood education a mandate that districts and people will lose their choice as to whether an all-day kindergarten, which has not really, I don't think, has proven to really benefit children in the long run.
Right, but the government wants them from cradle to grave.
Right, but the bonding bill is big too because we've already bonded 3 years in a row, and it does need 60% of the vote to pass a separate bonding bill, and the DFL doesn't have those kind of votes, so some Republicans would have to go along. But my guess is either the price comes down or some Republicans are throwing a bone. I think there will be a bonding bill, even though, we've had them for the last 5 years,
And this is why we don't want compromise. No compromising. The Republicans have to stick to the conservative issues and stop compromising and getting all these things passed. We don't need these things passed. We need you out of our pockets.
Well, I would agree, but in fact, in the bonding bill, $109 million is supposed to go to work at the Capitol. They want
renovating the Capitol building.
Yeah. So $109 million just to do that.
Well, I'm okay with renovation, but not $109 million.
Well,
or
they already
whatever.
have an operating budget. I don't know why they would need to bond to do that. So,
And once again, when they talk about bonding, that's just another word for taking out a credit card and borrowing,
In
which
other words,
means you have to
bondage.
pay the money back plus interest.
yeah,
They should call it the bondage bill.
they're
holding us
leveraging against future gains is really what they're doing.
future
Right.
generations.
And remember, all these levels of government are doing this. The county, the park district, cities, the Met Council, County Transit Improvement Board, they all have their own bonding authority. So we talk about the state, but we're seeing bonding all over the place.
bondage.
Bondage is what it results in.
And in leveraging future generations.
Well, another show in the can.
So there you go. Your kids are going to be paying for it, so that's your dog in the fight.
Well, we hope we gave you some good info. So see you next week.